Now that you have a basic idea of accessing the MySQL command line tool, we can start with setting up and configuring a user in MySQL. Remember that you need to have a certain set of permissions within MySQL in order to do this. Generally, if you are purchasing hosting space, you will not have access to manage users like this. If you're managing your own server or have MySQL set up on your own computer, then you should have the access required to do this. In order to set up users, the user you are accessing the MySQL tool with must have grant permissions. The basic syntax to add a new user to MySQL is what you see here. Note that this command, and indeed all MySQL commands, end with a semicolon, which should be a breeze for you though, because you've been doing it for PHP all this time, right? So let's break this command down. First, privilege types. The most common type that you will use is all. That will allow all privileges except grant to the user you're setting up. You can specify privileges to add to a user through this method as well, but getting into specific privileges and grants is beyond the scope of this training course. Next, we have on dbname.tables. This specifies the databases and tables that this user will have access to. If you want the user to access all the databases on the server, then you'll simply enter ***. It's not likely you'd want to do this, however. More likely, you want the user to have access to all the tables within a specific database. To do this, you enter the database name followed by a period, followed by an asterisk. If you want the user to have access only to a specific table within the database, then it is the DB name followed by a period, and then followed by a table name. You do have the ability to get even more specific and grant access only to specific columns on a table, but it's not likely you will need that. Typically, you're going to do database.star. Next, we have the user and the address you're granting permissions to. The user is a username that they will use to access the database. The @address is if you want to specify that they can only access it from a specific address. Typically, you want to restrict this to the server that they are on, not allowing remote access. Opening the addresses that it can be accessed from is a security risk. However, if you want to allow access from everywhere, after the @ symbol, you could enter a %sign. That will allow access from everywhere. Typically, you want to use localhost, which will allow access only from the local server, or you could specify an IP address that they can access from. Another way to open it up to access from everywhere is just to omit the @ and anything afterwards. Finally, we enter the password for the user to access with. Make sure that you do enter a password. If you do not enter a password, then you leave a huge security hole. So we finish it off with that semicolon. We'll copy this, paste it into our MySQL command line, and there we go. We now have a user that we can connect with. So if we go MySQL switch u rw php with the password, and the password is let me into. There we go. We now have our new user. Next, we'll go over how to revoke a user's access.